The great Norton Rotary racer, developed by innovative engineer Brian Crichton, was initially something of a shed project, before promising results won over Norton management, then John Player sponsorship. On the Isle of Man, Robert Dunlop and Trevor Nation would secure TT podium finishes. In recent years, these JPS Norton days have been rekindled by the Whiz Norton Classic Racing team. Here's riders Josh Brooks and Richard Wilson in action in the 2017 Classic TT. Dunlop and Nation's TT podiums in a way paved the way for a certain Steve Hislop to achieve arguably Norton's greatest ever TT win, when Hizzy went head-to-head on the now legendary Abus White Charger bike with World Superbike star Carl Fogarty in the 1992 senior race. In 2022, 30 years since that famous win, Team Whiz Norton entered a stunning Steve Hislop tribute Rotary Norton in the classic Superbike Manx Grand Prix race, evoking special memories of that magical day all those years ago. The most iconic British race bike, Manx Norton. This one was raced on the island by Brian Nicol at the 2022 Prix TT Classic meeting. These bikes were built with the purpose of winning on the island, and it's great to still be able to see them on the roads they were built for. Here we can see a number of well-known Manx Norton riders on the island's classic racing scene. I will be following their fortunes in race action later in the film, but firstly, here is some fast and furious practice action featuring them both on the TT course and Southern 100 Ballown circuit in 2022. In what was an eventful race on the St John's course, which used the Ballacrane to Kirkmichael section of the current TT course, a barely fit Rem Fowler, buoyed up by a tonic of brandy and milk, won the twin-cylinder class at the very first TT, setting a lap record of 42.91 miles per hour in the process. And the bike he was on was a Peugeot-engined Norton. This victory was achieved in spite of Rem having 2 crashes, being singed riding through a wall of fire from an earlier crash, having a puncture, and at one point being on the verge of giving up. One happy spectator at this history-making race was James Lansdowne Norton, also known as Pa Norton. He founded the Norton Company in 1898, and by 1908, talented engineer Pa was unveiling the very first Norton engine. He would battle against chronic ill health to ensure that Norton produced some of the finest bikes of the time. Unfortunately, Pa would not live to see the true glory days of Norton, passing away in 1925, aged 56. He did, however, have the delight of seeing Norton doing the senior and sidecar TT double in 1924. This close battle is going to be a real feature of this race, and here is John Cliff lying 7th on his beautifully turned out 350 Manx. Cliff in the thick of the action, using all the road. The distinctive Norton logo designed by Norton founder Pa Norton and his daughter Ethel over 100 years ago, proudly emblazoned across the leathers. The top 7 on lap 4 from another angle at the beautiful church bends.
Biggest change in that respect over here. This is here, but when Mike goes to this sort of format, just the top 3 through.
Edward Poole on his way to a good finish on his Manx Norton. John Cliff is a last lap retirement, but this still leaves 3 Nortons finishing in the top 10, with David Tetley 3rd, Edward Poole 7th and Brian Nicol 10th. This from a field of 21 starters and 17 finishers. We will see David Tetley again now in the junior race on the sole Manx Norton. This is among a field of very fast Hondas. Here is our man Tetley, and what a race-long battle he had in the thick of the action. Dominic Herbertson went on to win the race, and this frantic opening lap scrap for second place was narrowed down to a two-way battle between Jamie Coward and Rob Hodson on the final lap. Hodson pipping Coward to the line by just 1/10 of a second. After the successes of Norton in the Rotary years, the Mark would return to the TT in 2012 with an Aprilia engine, striking looks, and a truly memorable sound. The outbreak of World War II brought a halt to Isle of Man racing, And as these amazing photos I have kindly been given access to show, a Norton Isle of Man connection of some magnitude continued. Not on the fabled mountain course, but in the arena of battle. In this delightful image, we can see 3 members of the Manx Regiment having fun on a Norton 16H during the North African campaign. The Norton motorcycle, regarded by so many as a symbol of freedom, was now being called upon in huge quantities in the battle to defend freedom. Norton withdrew from international road racing for the 1939 season to concentrate on military motorcycle production, a decision that raised a few eyebrows at the time. But this decision was vindicated when war broke out later in the year and the company was able to quickly ramp up production to meet the huge demand. In all, around 100,000 Nortons were produced for the military in World War II. 2 of my own relatives were wartime dispatch riders, and they would both have likely benefited from Norton machinery, as it was Norton and BSA that produced the bulk of World War II bikes for the British and Commonwealth military. This is one of my grandmother's brothers, Sidney Mayfield Corrin, seated on a BSA M20. The Norton machines in particular were regarded as dependable workhorses that had a reputation for being almost unbreakable. And in the difficult terrain of the desert, that is what these brave lads needed. Well, sadly, my great-uncle never returned to Manx shores, as he was killed by enemy action on the island of Crete, where he is buried. He is remembered like so many other brave heroes on the War Memorial in his and my hometown, Castletown on the Isle of Man. Both Norton and the people of the Isle of Man played their part when freedom was brought into question, something to be proud of. Here, you might say, are 2 great symbols of freedom: this World War II Dispatch Rider badge and the iconic TT trophies. And they have an uncanny resemblance in a way, don't they? One of the best classic races on the TT course in recent years was the senior race at the 2017 Classic TT. First on the road is Jamie Coward on the Craven Manx Norton, followed by Josh Brooks on the Team Winfield Pattern. Some strong Manx Norton interest here, with James Cowton and Michael Russell showing his ability as a classic rider, being placed as high as 5th by mid-race. Coward is second at the end of the opening lap, behind Brooks, with Maria Costello, William Dunlop and Bill Swallow making up the top 5. Brooks at the head of the field on the mighty Patton has a 40-second lead over Coward now, but he will need to refuel at the end of the third lap, with the Norton able to go full race distance on one tank of fuel. Well, it's still fast and furious action among this lot, with Michael Russell ahead of Cowton and Herbertson. Herbertson here in mid-overtake. After the shake-up of the pit stops, there was almost nothing in it between Brooks and Coward going into the final lap. Well, unfortunately, a last lap misfire from the Manx Norton robbed us of a very close finish, and Brooks rode to his first mountain course win ahead of Coward and William Dunlop. Michael Russell was the next Norton finisher in 7th. With the participation of women in motorsport now largely taken for granted, it's difficult to comprehend the controversy that surrounded the first appearance of a woman competitor at the TT. Inga Stoll passengering Jack Dreon on a Norton Watsonian outfit in the newly introduced sidecar TT in 1954 caused a considerable storm. The Trailblazing Stoll would finish 5th in the race and won the hearts of the public, becoming the darling of the Isle of Man. Eric Oliver and Les Nutt were victorious on Norton in that momentous race, fighting off a strong BMW challenge. Well, Jack and Inga would return to the TT once more, failing to finish in 1957, before sadly they would both lose their lives at the 1958 Czechoslovakian Grand Prix, their Norton outfit leaving the road whilst lying in 2nd place. But Inga will forever be remembered for her achievement on that historic day in 1954. The 2022 Senior Classic Manx Grand Prix featured this impressive Peter Grantham Lodge ES2 Norton. Up-and-coming TT star Mike Brown was the rider. Here's a couple of practice clips of the bike, followed by the race itself over 3 laps. At the end of the opening lap, it's Bonetti who leads by 1.16 seconds from Lee Johnson. Then it's Herbertson and Hillier, with the 2 Nortons of Brown and Coward in 5th and 6th. Howard has now overtaken Herbertson in this tremendous battle on the road. At the head of the race, Lee Johnson has now taken the lead, but only by a handful of seconds from Bonetti. A Manx Norton on the mountain section of the TT course on a beautiful late summer's evening. Mike Brown finishes a fine third on the ES2 Norton, helped by a tremendous final lap of 110.312 miles per hour. Norton Commandos were ridden to some great finishes in the Isle of Man, most notably when hugely gifted Norton designer and racer Peter Williams won the 1973 Formula 750 TT on the truly legendary and groundbreaking JPS Commando monocoque. He had also personally designed this bike. What a man, what an achievement. At the 2022 Prix TT Classic meeting, it was nice to see a Commando on the grid with accomplished classic racer Richard Ford, the rider. Spectacular action as Coward overtakes Oversby going through the breathtaking Ballown Dip. After going well on his Commando, Richard Ford would be a last lap retirement. Coward pulls off this daring overtake on Oversby for a second time in this race. Herbertson is balked by a slower rider, but manages to get past to take the win from a gaining Oversby, who demotes Coward to a third place finish. Thanks to Norton having connections in high places, the police closed the mountain section of the TT course on a winter's day in 1949 to allow Norton to undertake testing of a brand new feature that would go on to transform motorcycle design. The groundbreaking Norton featherbed frame passed those initial tests with flying colours, as Pete from Murray's Motorcycle Museum explained to me.
The featherbed frame and the kneeler, when they come over here testing it at Tate's Cottage, right? Artie Bell was 15 mile an hour faster than Duke's Norton.
Yeah.
Duke shut off, wobbled, opened up, and Artie Bell went straight through. And the lap records just went sky high. It was the biggest breakthrough around at its time, I would think, you know.
This massive leap forward in design, delivering both strength and stability, was the brainchild of maverick engineering brothers Rex and Cromie McCandless, who were hired by Norton, who recognised genius when they saw it. After being produced in relatively small quantities for racing, the frame would end up incorporated into a range of other production and racing bikes. A final bit of race action now, with the 500cc classic race at the 2022 Prix TT meeting. There were 6 Manx Nortons on the start line, among a field of 21 bikes. In addition to all these wins, the thing that for me makes the Norton Ironman story truly great is that it was often a story of triumph over adversity. Whether it be Steve Hislop on the low-budget underdog A-Bus Norton storming to the greatest ever TT win, Pa Norton battling against poor health to build up the Norton name and witness the 1924 TT double, Inge Stoll overcoming prejudice to become the darling of the Isle of Man, or great motorcycling minds Crichton, McCandless and Williams persisting with their visionary ideas and eventually winning the day. I have delved only into a small part of the Norton story, and on reflection, I could only arrive at one conclusion. To finish with, here's a few moments for you to contemplate where you would slot Norton in the gallery of motorcycle racing greatness.